Welcome. I'm David Baszucki, CEO and founder of Roblox, and today you're listening to Tech Talks. Today we're talking about discovery. How do you find cool stuff on Roblox? How do you search for it? And we are joined by two discovery superstars. We have Michelle Gong on engineering, Chen Zheng on product. We're going to be talking about all things discovery. And really, we're hoping when you go away, you're going to learn a lot about what you watch on your living room, how you go shopping, and what it means when we talk about that. So welcome today. Let's get going. Let's just talk a little about your backgrounds. I scanned both of your LinkedIn pages, and you both have something in common. Do you know what it is? You both have PhDs, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so let's just dive in, right? Chen, you're in product. Michelle, you're in engineering. Little background from you first, Chen, and then we'll go to you, Michelle.
Sure. I would say like 20 years ago, I came to America actually to pursue a PhD in physics. So I kind of set the foot into the algo world, I would say. And that became a constant theme later on when I became a product manager. So I've been working on algo-related problem spaces for 2 decades. And largely actually related to discovery, as well as other problem spaces related to discovery, such as content production, as well as merchant fraud. So I actually was very lucky to apply the early days of machine learning to Google Shopping, Express, search and recommendation problems. And later on got to actually have the chance to build the first version of search, discovery, feed, and story ranking at Instagram. And when I talk about the merchant fraud problems, it was actually in a startup. And we had a lot of issues with all sorts of like merchant quality policy issues, and had to deploy the kind of the first human-in-the-loop machine learning-driven process to fight it. And then eventually, at Netflix, had a chance to work on both content production and promotion.
Okay, so those are 3 companies we'll probably mention today. So Google, Instagram, and Netflix. And I think for everyone out there who's in STEM or learning, interesting that such a technical degree ends up being very appropriate for search and discovery, which is a very technical product category. Okay, and how about you, Michelle? Like, how'd you get your start?
So my PhD was on statistics and machine learning. I have worked in research labs until Roblox.
Yeah.
So before Roblox, I led applied research labs in Google DeepMind and Meta AI, helping Facebook, Instagram, Google to improve their production recommendation systems and content understanding models. I have joined Roblox 3.5 years ago. Time flies.
And it's fun working with you.
It's a lot of fun working here.
We roll up our sleeves on some pretty big technical problems, and they're both very researchy, but we literally ship your work every week. So it's both researchy and getting... So I thought Discovery was Captain Cook, right? Captain Cook was sailing around the Pacific Ocean with a fleet of ships looking for new stuff. He was looking for interesting new things, wasn't quite sure what was out there, found Hawaii, found a few other interesting things. So how does that relate to discovery in a consumer product? Who wants to talk about what does discovery mean when we look at Netflix or we look at Instagram or we look somewhere else?
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think discovery ultimately means how to help users find new types of content, connections, or services they're looking for. And then generally speaking, there are many different types of discovery.
Yeah.
There are the types of discovery is very search centric that usually for platforms like app stores or Amazon, because people have a specific app or product in mind, so they go look for it. There are also the type of discovery is very recommendation-centric. You mentioned Netflix, right? As well as, I would say, Xbox.
So is that how people think about the industry? Discovery is the overall term, and then there's either search or recommendations?
Yeah.
Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah. There are also other categories. Like, for example, I would say ads also adds to the fun.
So if I go to a shopping product, Walmart, Amazon, you name it, I have both a search bar And sometimes when I go to the homepage on my Netflix, I just see a bunch of things. So those seem like the two different classes. If we think through all of the products that have a search bar, that search discovery, what types of things have recommendations? I know Netflix does. Are there any other products that pop to your minds?
I would say YouTube.
Okay, for sure.
Instagram.
Spotify, TikTok, a lot of social media platforms.
Xbox,
Yes,
probably.
Xbox too. Steam as well.
Okay, and then so those are discovery by images, or like I typically get tiles, and I think we're all really used to that. We don't know how used to it. A few years ago, there was a big innovation in discovery, and we started doing discovery not just by images, but by video.
Right.
Can you comment on what class of products those are, and are they doing discovery as well?
Yeah.
Who wants to go?
In fact, I would say TikTok, Instagram Reels. A lot of these short video products actually changed how, especially new generation, interact with the internet. It is a very challenging problem because how could you capture users' interest within the first few minutes when they get onto the platform? And then how do you understand which video is most relevant? It's definitely a different paradigm
So that
for
is
discovery.
still discovery.
That's right.
It's interesting to think with those products, is it fair to say the product is discovery in that it's the whole time I'm using the product, in a way, I'm doing discovery.
Yeah, well, in some way, like the traditional discovery, right? You saw some kind of a cover of the product.
And then you go somewhere
And
else.
then you go there and check if the product is what you want or if that content is what you want. But short video changed that, right? What you see is what you get. So there's no such evaluation process. In fact, you are in consuming and then deciding, oh, I want it or don't want it, and then go to the next step.
And so two little hints on that type of discovery. First, the idea that instead of being separate, an image and then consumption, we have seen a lot of the video things I watch in my living room move to auto showing a little clip, for example.
Right.
There's a little bit of it. I think that without giving away, that hints a lot of the opportunities we have at Roblox to move from just image to what could be next. So that's a fun topic. And then one thing I think, I'm not sure, and you both might know the answer, a lot of people, and before we dive into the details of discovery, how do those short form video products? So I know there's TikTok Shorts, Reels, Spotlight, and there's a bunch of others. How do they know to show me videos of cats fighting with ducks? Like, how did they figure that out? Any idea?
Yeah, some parts of it is actually coming from the user behavior, and they basically give you a set of sampled videos and see how you work.
What kind? But I didn't know I'm doing any behavior. What? I feel like I'm just scrolling through things. Is there some behavior I'm doing that's giving them a hint as to what I like?
Like how much you actually watch that video in
Okay.
front of you, and then whether you immediately skip or you actually watch the whole thing. And did you actually give it likes, or did you actually follow the creator?
So is it possible that only the speed at which I scroll, how long I stay on any video, and whether I like has been enough to infer what I like on those products?
In fact, I want to be a little bit nerdy here.
Yeah.
That's implicit user feedback. We also have explicit user feedback. When you first come on, for example, our platform, we know very little about you, right?
Yeah.
Interactive recommendation is the key. We want to know the recommendation within the first few minutes. And how do we get transfer learning from other similar user cohort? How do we immediately get the signal from your behavior and train the model and get the real-time signal to tailor the recommendation towards you?
So would that mean that if I tend to watch all of the cat videos most of the way through and all of the duck videos all of the way through, there's other users like me who also like ducks fighting with cat videos, and I'll start to see their videos.
That's right. And then sometimes they will also inject some of the new signals to see if you like those new video. And if you like it, they'll show you more. And they're also part of the signal actually coming from the video itself. So a lot of those short video platforms actually invest in content understanding. They try to understand the creator intent, the metadata of the short video. Using that, they will pair with what they know about you as a user. For example, if you tell them when you're onboarding, you like this type of topics like cats, and they want to show you those later on. So basically the final put together recommendation system usually have both the user behavior information, implicit and explicit signals, as Michelle said, as well as the content understanding signal. So it's like a creation related content to put together the recommendations for you.
Okay, so that's a good foundation in discovery. It's not Captain Cook. It's giving people the best content or content they're interested in. So we jump over to Roblox now. And Roblox is a little different than video. It's a little different than shopping. These are experiences that people can come to together. So it'd be fun to talk about how discovery's evolved a bit on Roblox. And I can start if you want, because we didn't even know what discovery was when we started Roblox. We just knew when UGC started getting more popular, how do I find something interesting? So we ran for many, many years, single discovery algorithm. Our algorithm was show all of the experiences with a real-time stack ranking of the number of people in the experience. It's that simple. And that got Roblox going for probably the first 8 years or so. It had a couple interesting traits. When something was really crazy, it went straight to the top. It also had a lot of issues. It would tend to burn in something at the top.
Right.
So it gave a huge advantage to experiences that had been around for a while. So it'd be fun to maybe just talk a little about how discoveries evolved at Roblox, maybe what you saw when both of you came on board and some of the things we've done since there. So who wants to jump in on that?
When I joined, I think we had our first personalization model. It was a collaborative filtering model with only one input signal, user experience engagement pair.
Okay.
And then we recommending top 2K experiences. But it's already a step forward than non-personalized model, right? And then since then,
So a personalized model means rather than recommending the same thing to every single person on Roblox, no matter where you live, how long you've been on the platform, what device we used to recommend the same thing to everyone. So this was a big step, personalization.
That's right. And then after I joined, in the next 2-3 years, we replaced the collaborative filtering model with a multi-step stage ranking model. So that basically means we want to retrieve as many experiences from all the 90 million experiences on the platform as possible, and we rank them and personalize to that user's intent. And then we have deep learning, graph learning. In the more recent years, we implemented self-supervised learning, efficient attention modeling, entire space multitask ranking. So the whole ranking stack, essentially. And then I think now we are recommending 30K to 40K unique experiences daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's in 3 minutes. Massive improvement on Roblox. So let's tease a few of these apart. So going all the way back to the start, we used to rank real time, just all the experiences. We started thinking about personalizing this. And then one of the first steps, you mentioned engagement, is when you start connecting people with experiences, you have to know where you're going. Sometimes we call this, I'm always asking, what are we optimizing for?
Right.
Basically, or what's our objective function? If I was to go to a cocktail party and someone was to say, hey, what's your discovery recommendation optimizing for?
Right.
I said, we figured out a way to optimize for 5-year user happiness and retention. And so we're able to connect people with experiences that they love, and it makes them just want to hang out and be with their friends on Roblox. Would that be a good answer?
Yeah, I think that is the first base layer, right? Because if you don't have the user engagement and retention, everything else doesn't follow. So we need that actually to be solid in the center, but we're not finishing with our job right there, right? So we're also building a second layer, which is called page construction, which you trade off among different objectives, including also sort of a long-term value of the user, which includes monetization, includes social connection, includes other sort of utilities of the platform. And then we're adding the last layer, which is really optimizing for the experience join funnel, because Roblox experience is way more complicated than a piece of just a tweet. So through that, I think we actually can optimize for a multi-layered objective system to be still very adaptive to our fast-pacing growth flywheel.
So this is really tricky, I think, all of the machinery you've shared, because if we asked someone to build an engineering system that optimizes 5-year long-term happiness and retention, that's really hard.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, Michelle, if you can mention, sometimes we use the term proxies.
Yes.
And we talk about, we can't, we need to know what's going to be good for long-term retention in the first hour or the first day. And so a lot of what we're working on is trying to find proxies for long-term retention. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. I think there are two factors. To have a flourishing platform to retain users, one, we optimize for user. We also optimize for content creator. We want to improve ecosystem diversity on our platform so our user can find more and more new engaging content. On the other hand, for each user, we want to make sure they find the most relevant content, so that we found the most relevant content is a good proxy for users' long-term satisfaction.
That's right.
So what does relevant means, right? We need a proxy for relevance. Therefore, we use engagement. Like if you are deeply engaged with an experience, that means the experience is relevant. If you're willing to make a purchase, that means it's actually relevant to you. And also, if you are inviting your friends into the experience to play with you, that's also relevant. We keep looking for such proxy metrics to essentially approximate short-term relevance to then approximate long-term user satisfaction.
That's cool. You mentioned something that's very subtle. It's probably the most technical thing we'll go into today, which is ecosystem health, not just of users, but of creators. Now, this is really difficult because short-term user optimizations are very different than long-term thinking about search and discovery that makes the ecosystem healthy for creators to flourish and thrive. And so there's a lot of decisions you both make where we could boost results in a month, but that might not boost results in 6 months. And because the results we see in 6 months are not just related to search and discovery, they're related to the health and happiness and business of all the creators on the platform. So that's really subtle. Thinking about optimizing both user health and creator health. Can either of you just comment, like,
Yes.
how do we figure that out? Like, that's really complicated.
Yeah, it is a journey, right? As part of the discovery evolution, I think we realize more and more discovery is not isolated island. You cannot just do this through improving a certain piece of algo, twisting certain objective function, and achieve the amazing result.
That's right.
We have to do it along with our creators. That's the
right.
key. And then what do I mean by that? There's a few segments of it. Part of this is like actually consciously consider ecosystem health in the design of our system. That's why I mentioned the separation layers design we just have. And then part of this is also about having the right sort of measurement of success so that we know we're heading towards the right direction. But then the part of this is also about transparency, like all the stuff we just talked about, like the how we optimize, what we optimize.
So I'm going to tease this one apart. So we're saying two things here. Number one, there may be parts of our algorithm we tune
Yes.
that would show a short-term user decrease, but we're going to bet that over 6 months,
That's
it's
right.
going to boost creator health, and we're going to be in a better place in 6 months. So there's a little bit of a take the long view value there, which is super interesting. There's another thing you touched on. This is a big thing you just mentioned that word transparency.
Yeah.
Because up and down our culture, there's a lot of discussions around algorithms. This is politically in the hot seat. There's some history to non-transparent algorithms, and we're going to touch on a few of them because I think this is actually really interesting to the user base. So let's go further. What we're saying is we're starting to tell the creators on Roblox what our algorithm is. What are the factors that are being weighted towards personalized what we show people? And can you mention the connection all the way to our dashboard? Like,
yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it means like, for example, if we use a particular metric in our objective function, let's say the co-play that Michelle mentioned, the action that user invite their friends to join experience, we want to make sure that shows up in the creator's dashboard so that creator can see the metric of that particular thing for the experience, and up and down with the time series so that they can understand, oh, what is my action causing this metric go up and down so that how can I optimize my action?
So this is pretty interesting, right? Because a lot of companies have discussions around how transparent can we be with our algorithm. One of the typical things for not being transparent would be people are going to game the system. If we shared our algorithm, people would game the system. But I think we discussed, I don't know.
Yes.
I'm actually pretty optimistic because wouldn't gaming the system, if we have a really good algorithm that's transparent, mean the same as building an amazing creation on Roblox?
Exactly. In fact, in addition to transparency, we also want to provide insights, actionable insights, to help creator to improve their experiences. Therefore, transparency is only the first step. After transparency, we say, hey, here are the tools, and here are the insights. Why don't you go back and improve your experiences?
Yeah,
that's right.
For example, I'd like to mention one of the recent very successful creator tools we built is thumbnail personalization. And then typically in other companies, they build it as a platform feature. It's not something creator use. Like the platform control how many versions of this promotional assets, and they pick one of the many for a particular user. But we build it with the mindset that we need to partner with the creator. This is their baby, their experience. They have a voice to decide what kind of variants of the promotional copy they want to put on top of the platform. And through that partnership, right, and then the creator really loved this actually tool. They adopted really fast. They also kept giving us suggestions, help us make the feature better. And then meanwhile, they have this dashboard to see how the action actually will fit into the system and how does that help them do the better job next time.
It's interesting that in the past, before we were talking about full transparency on our discovery and recommendations algorithms, we would think about telling developers how to be successful on Roblox. But is it possible that through full transparency of search and discovery and sharing an analytics dashboard, we're sharing exactly what we believe.
That's
and like we believe, we're trying to do our best to show the best personalized recommendations. So it almost comes full circle in look at the dashboards, look at our transparency on discovery. That's what we believe is really special.
Yeah, exactly. And then part of this intentional transparency is also giving our creators agency, as well as letting them tell us where we're actually still missing. I actually firmly believe our ecosystem is so vast. As a small team, we sometimes may not necessarily know what all the different types of content might be out there, what creators are thinking about to build, right? It's hard for us to anticipate.
That's
but
right.
if we tell them what we are looking at, they can tell us, wait, hold on, have you considered this as an aspect of the experience that could be very engaging, very telling of the retention? And then we want that kind of feedback. But without being transparent, you wouldn't be able to hear that.
And I think what's also interesting is as we start searching for the best 6 or 8 or 10 factors to predict 5-year retention.
Yes.
A lot of them are human understandable. And from memory, I think it's, do people come back the next day? Is this an experience where people are meeting with their friends?
Right.
Is this an experience where, it's fun that these end up being almost intuitive in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, super cool. Okay, a couple other things that, so for people who are out hanging and talking about search and discovery, there's a term that sometimes shows up in all platforms called cold start. So for me, cold start was living in Minnesota, going outside when it's 20 degrees below, and like my car wouldn't start because the oil was so cold. It was like, rah, rah, rah. It's interesting how that's metaphorically come to search and discovery. What's cold start mean when someone hits Netflix or Roblox or Instagram? What's that mean on our platform?
Yeah. So actually, there are two types of cold start.
Oh.
Yeah. So one type of cold start is user cold start, like
Yep.
what you just said. When a new user showed up in front of a new product, like Netflix or us, what do? And at that moment, we do know nothing about this user.
Right.
The best luck is we can ask the user to fill some question there. Maybe we can have a little bit of clue, right? And then that's traditionally very hard for recommendation system to recommend very relevant content to you because we know nothing about you. The other type of cold start is content cold start. It's about a new piece of content showed up on our platform. Again, except for the creation-related data, we have very little user engagement data with that piece of content. And then this content may have a hard time competing with, especially the boring, right, very successful old content. So for both type of cold start problem, we also have.
Yep.
And we've been in kind of the process of addressing them. And I don't think it's an ending sort of a journey. In the past, we have actually a dedicated cold start model to solve the user cold start problem. Over the past, I think, a year or two, we added a lot of streaming features, which actually means we index really heavily on new users' real-time activity.
Yep.
Because, we know so little about you, so we want to be very adaptive to the new user.
Yeah, from an engineering point of view, content cold start is actually a less challenging problem than user cold start because our content understanding model have improved significantly in the past few years. And also, with such a big platform like Roblox, we can quickly explore and collect some user feedback, and immediately we know whether the content can go viral or not. So in fact, we discovered a lot of popular content that was only published like 2 days ago.
So this is really, this is interesting, and this is something that a lot of creators are always asking about is if I make something new and it's played 100 times, do I have a chance to go viral? And I think what you're saying is yes.
Yes.
Like we're focusing on this.
Yeah.
Now, in the midst of this, because we've worked so hard to balance the long-term ecosystem health with bubbling up new content, and there's a bunch of names for this, right? There's like multi-armed bandit, and there's like all these names for this. We have to be careful because we're now talking about content without a long history of play.
Yes.
And there's many ways to make content without a long history of play look good. I can have an emptied base plate with an amazing description and an icon. It says Dave's Super 50,000 person medieval night battle, and I can have a huge, this is the best new thing, but that might not be very good. So there's some things we have to do to try to optimize that. Can you talk about content understanding?
Yes. I think this is definitely, there's always trade-off. We want to discover a content as quickly as possible, but meanwhile, they have to be high quality.
Yeah.
In this year, we plan to invest significantly into content understanding and content quality because we start to recommend more and more tail content and discover them faster.
Yep.
So we have set up work stream on all this clickbait detection and then the low quality content.
And I think
detection.
what we mean by clickbait is rather than someone doing their best to make a cool Roblox experience, something where the image, the description, what we can see in the place, it just doesn't all add up. It seems like a little different.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a fine line. The challenge here is there's a fine line between copy and inspiration.
That's right.
Right, because we want inspiration. A lot of a good creation, whether it's art or architecture building, come from inspiration. So someone saw something successful on Roblox and inspired by it, come up with a similar idea and make it even better. It's good. It should be encouraged. But if you directly copy it, then that's something bad. We want to not do it.
The way I've thought about this is we only have so much room to mix all of the top experiences, the up and coming experiences with the new experiences. We want to do that in the most optimal way possible. Yes. So if, for example, half of all the new experiences coming out of nowhere are mislabeled or misiconed, they're actually taking the space of the valid effort. So I've always thought about this as making it more efficient for the people who are really trying to create.
Yeah, not taking the good oxygen from the good experience. That is totally true. And I think we are, as Michelle said, still early days in fighting against this problem because the copycats, the scammy games, the misleading content, teleports, we are discovering them, detecting them, filtering them. But the problem is it's a little bit like a whack-a-mole. If you don't know what it is, you don't know how to detect it based on the current traditional approach, because you have to understand it, label it, and then learn a machine learning algorithm and then deploy it. But in the future, we are looking for even more scalable way that without even understanding the pattern, can we actually spot it before it becomes a big thing? And that is a hard problem.
Yeah.
And this is rooted in actually deeper understanding of our own content, which is not just about its metadata, its title, its promotion assets, but also what's actually really going on within the game, within the experience.
What's really given me comfort about this is we're not necessarily, something that I don't think we really could do would be understanding content to know what's going to be great. That seems impossible. Our users need to do it.
Yeah.
I think the way I think about it, when we say content understanding, it's understanding really where it just doesn't add up.
Yes.
Something's really weird here and we don't want to steal the oxygen. So that's another fun complement to the cold start problem, where we're trying to cold start content as well as have users have a great first experience. So to frame this in everyone's mind, we've been talking about discovery, which is you look at something and you see a lot of cool things that are intriguing to you, but there's a whole other way that people interact with shopping, interact with their home video theater, interact with games, and that's search. And search is completely different than discovery. When I think about searching, whether it's on a shopping site or somewhere else, I typically, when I'm shopping, I sometimes don't know what I'm looking for. I just say, hey, I want to look at ultra portable cameras with a good lens. Whereas when I'm on home video, a lot of times I enter the name of the movie, for example.
Right.
So maybe to start, is search really both of these things, knowing exactly what I want or roughly what I want?
Yeah, it's essentially, you can imagine for organic discovery, user doesn't have to input a query, right? We understand the user intent from the past user behavior or similar user. For search discovery, actually, we get some golden queries from users.
What's a golden query?
So essentially, the user queries is actually contains a lot more information. I shouldn't say golden because in technical terms, golden means there's a set of standard queries. We have correct answers for them. But users with queries actually give us an extra bit of information. In fact, our team has been collaborating with our PhD interns to see whether we can have the multi-turn recommendation system. So
Can you give an example of what would be thought of as one of these types of queries?
So I come on to Roblox as, hey, I like Dress to Impress. Can you suggest me something similar?
Ooh.
So that's the first turn. And then they suggest something to me. And I like these two, but not the other two. And then that's the second turn. Through multi-turn conversation, we actually can gather a lot more explicit information from users. And therefore, we can tailor our search and recommendation experiences.
I never even thought of that. So I've never thought of when I'm shopping, for example, or on Roblox, of having a more complex dialogue. Show me something like this, but not like this, and more like this.
Yeah.
So is that a general thing we should expect in all these products, like a much more complex search line?
So I think this is a speak to
Early
the
prototyping days.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it speaks to the evolution of search because we just talked about evolution of discovery earlier, maybe more from the recommendation perspective. From search, I would say up to today, a lot of our work is really about making search better as a companion. Like what
Yeah.
you said, you have a particular intent in mind, whether it's a particular experience or types of experience, right? And we're trying to find it for you. But what Michelle's talking about is actually the next stage. We are aspiring to go towards that. I'm not sure if a multi-turn query is the only solution, but we definitely want to go there.
It's worth thinking about it, right?
Yeah, it's like a concierge.
Because we're used to link search, and whether we're using Bing or Google or some other thing, and
Right.
now all of society is going through
Yes.
complementing that with an AI supercharged
Yes.
type search. And when I think of shopping, just this morning, I was literally looking for a mini stereo auxiliary cable, 6 feet long, white, and I could feel that. I won't name the shopping site. It was having trouble putting that all together. And it was doing more of a context match rather than saying, okay, they have to be 6 feet long, they have to be white, they have to be a mini aux cable, let's only show those.
Right. There's a logic in your intent.
And so that logic was not being picked up.
Right,
And so I
right.
think what you're saying is search may start to go down that
Yeah.
route.
Yeah.
I think as users are being trained by all these AI products, right, to be actually feeling natural to have a dialogue with a box, I think this behavior became potential sort of mature, and that's where potentially we want to explore too. And then, but as a baby step, just also as a PM, I like try to put things also in a practical terms. In the baby step, we're building a search landing page as a way to sort of starting the concierge journey. So user can come to the search box, maybe have intent, but immediately get value without even typing a single term, because they can find their recently played
right.
experiences, trending search queries, or their own queries, or maybe some sort of categorical experiences related to their sort of history. And over time, you can imagine that search landing page can become the place where they start this kind of multi-turn journey as well.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
I just learned something. The future of search actually is going to combine a lot more human understanding.
Yes.
So much potential for shopping sites, I think, as well as Roblox.
Another feature of search we're also start doing is no longer just one single entity, one search product. We used to have several search, right? I mean, we still do within Roblox platform.
Right, because on Roblox, I can search for my friends, I can search for experiences,
Yes.
I can search for a piece of clothing, I
Yes.
can search for even an event.
Yes, but in the user's eyes, like we're one company, one app. So we start putting things actually together. So we have this whole vision of Omni Search. Recently, we have already putting people search together with experience search. Next step is also bringing marketplace items to the same Omni Search as well. So users just go to one place and they can find all the things on Roblox.
And the results are really good. And I know we're automatically understanding a little, is that more likely a username or is that more likely an experience?
That's right.
For example, and mixing the results.
Yeah.
And that's been very promising. I think it implies a much cleaner UI, right? Search is
Correct.
search wherever it is on Roblox. Really excited about that as well. So a couple other things. So now let's get a little controversial. Okay. Because all companies are trying, but I want to highlight what I felt happened in 2016 and has been since corrected, and they're doing an awesome job. And I know I'm maybe even one or both of you worked at a company there, but in 2016, which was 8 years ago, I can remember going on Facebook. And I can remember the election was going on at that
Yeah.
point in time. And I felt more than being attracted by pictures of my friends' cats, which I felt was more of a retention mechanism from seeing interesting stuff.
Right.
It was getting into the thing of starting to share news clips by friends. And I could see all of my friends from high school and college posting clips in very different types of clips. And it almost felt like the retention was switching to being either really like this or really don't like this. It was a little bit more of almost a moral outrage or a moral connection switch. And then I know that over the years, Facebook ultimately said, yeah, let's move a little bit more to user health or happiness. So it seems like this is a little bit of one thing to be aware of when designing a search or discovery system. And it does feel that might be related to short-term versus long-term optimization. Is that how you would interpret it? Maybe a short-term optimization versus long-term optimization?
Actually, I was there when this happened. I was actually at Instagram.
Okay.
Experienced a slightly part of that sort of phenomenon. I think back then, whether Facebook or Instagram feed, optimization objective is really engagement.
Yeah.
And then actually short-term engagement, just time spent.
That's right.
And then because of that, you drove into several issues. One is a popularity bias. Now we're very familiar with that, or you call it like a bullying effect.
And
right?
we want to highlight this was very early in the search and discovery things, and Meta's subsequently become extremely good at it.
Right.
So this is more like just an industry discussion on short-term optimization versus long-term optimization.
Historical sort of episode we went through. And then so the other part of this is pushing actually some of the new creators harder to climb up. So there's a declining of the sharing. And then the third issue was a filter bubble. That's what you're talking about, right? You potentially got pushed into those extreme sort of bubbles, only see certain type of thing or the other certain type of thing. And the fourth thing is you start seeing people's connection with their actually very close friends actually falling off. So this shows a good example when discovery is a single-minded, optimizing for one objective, how dangerous that can be.
Well, it also shows, in a sense, one of our values is we are responsible.
Right.
The massive amount of responsibility that both of you are dealing with all the time, and I feel the transparency is a good check. It's a little like open source discovery, kind of thing. So that's good, and the notion that the better our discovery is, the less gameable it will be. Like it'd be cool to imagine someday we can just share our whole algorithm, and because it's optimizing what we believe is healthy is really cool. I want to ask a question around, now another controversial question. Are you at all on either Shorts, Reels, TikTok, or Spotlight, or any of those? Because I'm on all of them.
I am.
I'm
you sure?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on
TikTok
all of
too.
them, and each one of them has, for some reason, zeroed in a certain part of me. Like I was mentioned, one of them is a little bit more for me interesting, cats fighting with ducks kind of thing. One of them, for some reason, is just all kinds of therapists telling me how to get better. So that's kind of interesting. One of them is all around cars and rockets and motorcycles and rebuilding engines and things like that. And then one of them is all about political stuff, just like real-time political. So I'm wondering if what that means is, even though it's fairly well known, is it possible that each of these companies has a little bit of their own discovery algorithm? Is like such a thing possible?
Yes. I think all of them are actually powered by some of the most advanced discovery algorithms in the world. However, as you can tell as a user, those most advanced discovery algorithms are not good enough for users.
That's right.
So we have a long way to go.
Another aspect of it, I think, speaking to the creator ecosystem, they could very like to have the exact same algorithm. You as a user at the end of the day may still experience different content because different creators are on the different platforms. That's why it speaks to the importance of sort of transparency and collaboration with creators. So for example, when I was at Instagram, I remember clearly that there's a community management team is actually go out of the way to work with the community, the creator community, to come up with different themes, different types of content trends to help sort of the creator ecosystem health, so to speak. Similarly, Roblox, we have DevRels, right? Work very closely with our creators, listening to what they want, listening to what they need to develop the next generation content for Roblox. And those efforts don't go noticed. Because ultimately, when discovery is powerful, content is the king. So you need both to be a successful content platform. That's my firm belief. So the more these two can become closer, to be together and amplify each other, the more successful that platform can be.
Yeah, I think we should also try to get explicit user feedback. When you are getting frustrated, there's no way for you to tell them, I don't want this, right?
That's right.
So definitely explicit.
But I do give them feedback because I just start flicking through videos more quickly.
That's right.
Like, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Or multi-turn recommendations.
Actually, this is speaking to a less known sort of a category of discovery. We talked about search-driven, recommendation-driven, even ads-driven discovery. But there's another type of discovery is kind of very serendipitous. So sometimes some of the platform purposely implement a function called like I feel lucky or random choices or explore or discover. They have different names. The idea is for someone like who's frustrated, you can get out of your bubble and try something completely new. And if you end up finding something new, then they can put that into your main feed.
So that
recommendation.
It's interesting to think if that is a response to a non-optimal algorithm that is ending up in like a topographical minimum versus, it's like, oh my gosh, we failed. Random jumpstart.
Yes, like a local optimal, like jump you out of that.
Okay, I want to jump just into any future visions that you're thinking about, either of you, for search and discovery. Some of the ones that I have tossed around as we think about our long-term objective is the notion that it may be different for different ages. So, and this would be not any promised feature, but I am optimistic about us thinking, because in many ways we think about our product relative to age. It's interesting to think what would be our optimal objective function for a 6-year-old on Roblox. And we might lean more educational for that objective function. In certain ways, we might have a different objective function for someone who's 40, for example. So that's my idea. Stay tuned, because I know we all get together a lot and talk about things. But I'm curious about if both of your ideas of where we might see this go.
Yeah.
I would say we need to balance discovery versus security and civility. You actually touch upon that point. A lot of the large language models have this jailbreak problem, right? It's gonna be so that basically means I start to ask questions, and eventually the large language model says something that's completely outrageous, right?
Which is, I think, what hundreds, if not thousands, of extremely creative Roblox users would love to see happen, right? They love to push the system in more of a creative way.
Yes, especially when we have 3D generation,
right?
When each individual component looks secure and civil, and how do you combine them together to make a gameplay that's a jailbreak? So that's definitely one of the challenging problems we need to handle, especially for a metaverse-based platform.
Nice.
I'll speak
How about
to
Chen, where do you think it's
yes. I'll speak to two things. One is more short-term, one is maybe more long-term future. And first, internally, within even the Discovery org, we're trying to build a lot of the components in a scalable way so that page construction don't just apply to home, but can be applied to search, to charts, to EDP, experience detail page, right? And meanwhile, Discovery as a platform can also be helpful for marketplace, social, ads. But eventually can also be as a platform for creators, as what you just alluded to. The more future sort of vision I have in mind is speaking to this component of discovery and content needs to work together to really create the magic. Yeah. And I'm seeing this happening thanks to all the advancement in AI. Now with generative AI, the same types of creation data not only useful to create kind of an awesome experience. It can also be useful as content co-star and connect back to the user, get feedback, so the creators can understand what works, what doesn't work in a much shorter period of time instead of years.
That's really interesting.
So one startup was looking into it like Suno. They does this music generation. So within maybe 10 seconds, you can create a very awesome, catchy song with a bunch of metadata you put in. But then smartly use the same metadata you use to generate that song for recommendation.
It's interesting because there's been several conversations with the launch of our 3D generation model,
Yes.
Cube 3D, that metadata is very important to couple with that model.
Yeah.
And when I make a 4x4 dune buggy with red chrome and whatever, aligning that metadata and keeping it with that model
Correct.
is actually the root description of what made that thing in the first place.
And I think Roblox has this natural uniqueness and advantage in this because not like other content platforms like Netflix, all our content are created in our platform.
That's
we
right.
know all the data. So we don't actually need to gather them or convince creator to have a high adoption to gather them. We just need to connect the dots, right? And then secondly, we have already seen a small feedback loop is formulating with the thumbnail personalization. We gave the creator the tool, they generate those thumbnail, we give them feedback, they come back with better thumbnail. Now imagine if those thumbnail, we also help them generate. And now they can even do better job with this whole loop, but they can know very quickly if this thumbnail is doing well or not. And meanwhile, the machine learning algorithm behind to generate and recommend it will get the feedback as well and get better over time. So I'm really excited about this potential future for discovery as well.
So how far do you feel right now we are along the discovery vision? So if I said it goes from 0 to 100, when I know all of the stuff we're working on, and so I'll go first. I actually feel like we're 27% of the way. How do you both feel?
As an engineer, I'm with you. Engineers are always very pessimistic, but I know Chen, she's very optimistic. That's why whenever she said ETA, I said, I need to move it by a month.
No, actually, I think maybe a more, well, I wouldn't say pessimistic, but I feel we have a long way to go. We still have a lot to build.
That's right.
So we're probably in the 10 to 20 region as well.
Mine is more around knowing what we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Discovery is going to get a lot more fun over
That's
Correct.
time.
Yes.
Same here.
Discovery is going to be so fun and so intimate and so personal. I think there's a lot of room here.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I don't just look at the algorithm innovation. I'm very confident we can push out. I also see there's a tons of new UI patterns, interaction we can put on to the platform. Given we are 3D experience platform, right? Look at what we have. I think there's a long way to go from 2D to 3D. One day we may have a 3D discovery experience for 3D experience. That's what I'm hoping one day we can realize. So from that sense, that's why we're 10 to 20%.
A lot more product use cases.
Yes, exactly.
What your, and also on the search side as well, as you were talking about AI integrating into search, one could imagine whatever happens with virtual clothing will happen with physical clothing. And so as you were talking about that, it was making me think I have many avatars, including one that's my same shape and size. And if I go to, say I'm going to the Academy Awards, not that I'm going to go there, but if I was in the audience of the Academy Awards, I would probably say, hey, I'm going to be going to the Academy Awards in 3 weeks. I need a stylish tuxedo that's a little, something I wouldn't normally buy. I want to lean to blah, 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 and see my avatar with all of those items as part of maybe even physical world shopping.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so AI for search, that popped into my
That's
mind.
very
as a
exciting, yes.
Huge opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's another aspect of this is also live ops. I think we started this whole experiment from early last year, right? And seeing so much success, working close side by side with our creator community, pushing out awesome updates, new experience events for our community. And right now, our frequency cannot be too high, although it's already quarterly. But I imagine one day, every single day, there's some culture moment, there's some event happening, and then we're working together side by side with the creator, putting it up onto the platform. That will be so much fun as well.
Yeah, that live ops thing makes me feel like one of the 4 short form videos that I use, feels more like real time in a way. Others don't. So live ops has that real time component.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, hopefully if you were listening today, you know now what search discovery and recommendations are, and who could have been better to share it with than Chen and Michelle. Thank you both for joining me. I think our audience learned a lot today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave.
Okay, thank you both.
We're happy
Thank
to be
you.
here.